Welcome to the Nourished Brain podcast, where we focus on mindfulness-based whole foods nutrition and the art of empowered eating to optimize health, mood, energy, and nutritional well-being. I'm Sarah Fajera, an integrative and functionally minded registered dietitian and owner of Mindfully Nourished Solutions. Let's get you nourished. Dr. Ellen Albertson is a psychologist, registered dietitian nutritionist, certified Wellcoach, and Reiki Master. She is an internationally recognized expert on women's health and wellness. A sought-after speaker, author, and mentor, Dr. Ellen is dedicated to helping women embrace themselves, gain the confidence to step into their brilliance, and to harmonize the dance of their lives with the song in their hearts, to flow with grace, beauty, and ease. So Dr. Ellen, welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here, and I love the work you're doing. Just this whole idea of we must be like cousins or something, because I love neuroscience and, of course, nutrition, and they have so much to do with each other. So this is going to be fun.
We're on the same wavelength with a lot of things. So,
Absolutely.
of course, everyone's heard your bio, right? All of this training and education and background. But it's also so interesting to hear what you're making of it, what you're doing with all your knowledge and skill sets. So fill us in. What does your work look like these days, and where are you really focused in? How are you helping people?
Yeah, well, I have three businesses. So I have a kind of a healing Reiki practice. I have a medical nutrition therapy practice in Vermont where people actually come to my office. And then I have a international coaching practice where I empower women at midlife to get unstuck and find the courage, confidence, and energy to make their next chapter, their best chapter. So I have lots of skills and degrees, but it all really comes together. It's really all about helping people overcome their blocks, figure out their strengths, figure out like, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? How can I have more joy and happiness? So I kind of do this in three ways, really helping, and I work primarily with women, as you do, I think, helping them to have great energy. So really to get energized, to what I call get off your fear potty. So to face that thing, that block, that fear that's keeping you from having an amazing life. And then finally to get happy, because I feel like happiness is your GPS device. Like we're here to be happy. And I think as women, we're taught to put everyone and everything else first. So it's like, the house comes first, the spouse, the kids, the work, the garbage. And it's like, there's no time left for us. And so I think that's where women go into, emotional eating so much, because it's the only way they know how to take care of themselves. So with women, I'm kind of like untangling this story. On the one hand, kind of going through what are your beliefs and your thoughts, how have you been living your life? And then the other side of the coin is figuring out like what would get you excited about getting up in the morning? Like how can you be joyful and energized and happy again? A lot of the women who come to me are kind of super stuck. They're like totally lost that connection with feeling good in their life. And that's what I really help them do over the course of time through my, through my coaching and through my expertise with nutrition.
So you really have a blend in your approach of, like you said, the medical nutrition therapy, but also coaching skills. So with the coaching piece, I know I just recently went through the Wellcoaches training program, and it just opens my eyes to how many opportunities there can be when you're working through any kind of a process, right? From point A to point B to not only, come across and identify barriers, then make them manageable, but to really get past them, to create really intelligent plans in the context of health goals to get where you want to go. So when you're working with women, I guess I'm really curious to hear from you where women really are feeling like they're stuck and where it's really unnecessary that they feel like they're stuck. Because I was telling you before the call, a lot of women who come to me have kind of been through, every diet under the sun, and they're just really frustrated that they can't reach a goal. And I'm constantly saying to people, well, listen, like I don't think you're going to get to where you want to go as long as some external guide, a list of foods or rules is guiding what you're doing. So that's a common stuck point that I see that can be worked around and can be overcome, which is really amazing to see. What about you? Where do you see those stuck points being?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just a big shout out for Well Coaches too. I've been a Well Coaches coach for 11 years, and I did their professional coach training, and it really transformed my work as a dietitian because we're so much taught to tell people, eat this, don't eat this. And the coaching approach is so different because you believe the client has the answers for themselves. And so a lot of the work to address your stuckness point is, women have all of these beliefs. They believe that diets work. They believe in quick, simple, easy solutions. And then if you tell them, well, let's throw out all the dieting, let's smash our scales, let's forget about all that and just focus on eating healthy, it's a little jarring for them. So the stuckness is this desire to think that there's got to be this magic solution. And there really isn't. I mean, I love the work of Michael Pollan, who says, eat less, eat mostly plants, and don't eat anything your grandmother wouldn't have eaten. And of course, we have specifics within that, depending on, someone's specific physiological needs. But there's this stuckness, there's this desire to find a magic bullet. And I think a big stuckness too is we're super hung up on the weight. We're focusing so much on weight loss, that we're, sort of from a law of attraction perspective, we're focusing on weight. So what happens is we get totally stymied by this whole weight loss thing. It's like a millstone around your neck that you go from diet to diet, and what I help clients really do is let's pretend that this isn't even an issue anymore. You're going to work on your eating habits and your exercise and your stress. What would you do if you loved your body and you were at your ideal weight? Because what happens with the weight is that I find for women, the weight is what's keeping them stuck. They don't get the new career, the new relationship, move somewhere new, have the confidence. They don't go out and reach for their dreams because it's always, well, when I lose the weight, then I'll meet the guy. When I lose the weight, I'll change my career, or I'll quit my job and find a better one, or I'll, I have one client and she wants to travel around the world, but she's stuck. She's too heavy to literally get on a plane. And so it becomes this whole thing of, it keeps you from moving forward, and there's a fear with moving forward. So it's kind of like we really need to work on, what are you afraid of? How is the weight keeping you stuck? Like I had a client yesterday and she knows it. She knows that weight issue is keeping her from changing careers, from finding a powerful, fulfilling relationship. So the weight itself becomes sort of this stuck thing that keeps you kind of caged in. The weight itself it's kind of a protection mechanism. It's literally, a barrier between you and what you want. So by focusing so much of your attention and your energy on the weight, you're not focusing on the things that would truly make you happy. I mean, I get my clients to a place where they're not thinking about food and eating, and they're starting to look at food as fuel because they want to have the energy to, create a life that they love. So it's kind of, the stuckness is this whole dieting, magic bullet solution and putting your life on hold until you lose the weight.
It takes up so much energy, right? All the negative stuff around food and eating sometimes for so many years. I can imagine you're working with women in midlife, right? So I know a lot of women tell me they just feel like they've failed, to use the word failed, right? At trying to get to where they want to go. So it's interesting to hear that, that by just putting that kind of on the back burner, just that the weight as sole focus, right? That you're trying to shift perspective beyond the weight. But I guess my question related to that is, how do you notice that food and eating change or shift or transform when you're working through that process? Does weight become less important? Does relationship with food tend to change on its own? What do you see as a result of kind of that approach?
Yeah, it's very different for each client. And I think that, as you said earlier, this externalization of the diet, they've lost touch with their body. So the first step is to get in touch with hunger and satiety. So there's, great books around mindful eating, intuitive eating, giving themselves permission to eat where it doesn't become this food, it becomes this scary thing on the one hand and this comfort thing on the other hand. So really, where it starts to shift is normalizing your relationship with food. And a lot of my goals revolve around planning meals and snacks and also eating mindfully. So a lot of my clients, they starve themselves all day. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I give myself permission to order Chinese food or, so they're not. And I think part of the shift too is being mindful, tuning in, learning to, tune into your hunger and satiety. It's like, it's like our need to urinate, we need to pee. We don't put that on hold, right? Well, the same thing with hunger and satiety. If we listen to hunger and satiety and we listen to what our bodies needed and we built in treats, then we would be fine. So it's really a process that's very individualized with each client, but it really involves doing some planning and looking also at food as a way to take care of yourself, not a way to manage your emotions, but to really nurture and take care of yourself, give yourself permission, and also just taking the time to plan, do the food shopping, do the prep, and making it a priority in your life. Because a lot of what happens is these clients are so hungry that then they're dieting all day, which means kind of starving yourself. They're on this idea like, I'm going to be good today. It's 1,200 calories, maybe 14. And of course, they're starving. And, when you starve yourself, your cortisol levels increase. So that's getting into the neuroscience of this. When cortisol increases, it puts the body in fight and flight. So you're even more stressed out. And then it's also increasing your appetite. So cortisol increases appetite. So when you diet or you deprive yourself of calories, you're making things much, much worse. So it's, I have a lot of my clients keep food journals, not of what you're eating, but keep food journals of how hungry you are. And, and also we really work a lot on self-care. And I know you want to talk more about self-compassion and where that fits in, but putting this all in context.
Yeah. Do you notice that when women have been suppressing their natural appetite, hunger signals for years and years and years, that it's really difficult for them to tune into those? I have women sometimes who tell me that they were on Weight Watchers, when they were 11 or 12, preteen, young teenagers, and they just have never really felt like they really had that connection. So I wonder, from your perspective, how do you see that? Maybe it is different for everybody, I think, but what do you think are really the necessary steps, or really the first steps, for someone to just even start on that journey of mindful eating, which could really be a lifelong pursuit for sure?
Yeah, I think the first step with anything, and particularly with this issue, is to set an intention to learn to listen to love and care for your body. And that's a big issue because so many of these women have such an antagonistic relationship with their bodies. They're at war with their bodies. And let's face it, all your body wants to do is keep you alive. You've got these trillions of cells, it's amazing. So, I mean, we really try to focus on functional, really getting to know your body, to listen to your body, to love your body. So his first step, I think, would just, set an intention that I'm going to learn how to listen to my signals of hunger and satiety. I think keeping a journal of that, maybe, going a little bit longer without eating and noticing. And a lot of people don't, it's different for different people. So it could be, you could have a headache, or you get lightheaded, or you feel irritable. For me, it's just kind of funny, but when I don't eat, I get cold. Unless it's a really hot day. But when I'm feeling really chilly, I was like, oh my gosh, it's time for me to eat. So to start to really learn to listen to their body, love and appreciate their body, and learn to love themselves and see that taking care of your body through eating and through movement and getting enough rest is really an act of self-compassion, of learning to love and care for yourself deeply.
So thinking about this idea of self-compassion and self-care and really kind of a whole body shift, I think that's a transition oftentimes that happens from, external meal plan or caloric deprivation, frankly, right? Like starvation all day, is that people are worried that they're going to be out of control if they don't have, right, a set of rules or someone guiding them to say, eat this many calories, this many carbohydrates, this much. Like they feel like they need that as security almost, right? It's just the way they've always thought. So if someone is transitioning, to the place where they're thinking about food another way, this way you've been describing, gosh, I mean, I think that there's a lot of learning involved, right? And so if people feel kind of frustrated, right, I guess it's only natural to beat yourself up, right? Or to think, oh gosh, I really can't do this, right? It's a whole process. So let's talk about that, about the self-compassion piece, because that feels like a really important consideration. What do you mean when you say self-compassion? What does a self-compassionate voice sound like in context of eating concerns? And, does the science say anything about self-compassion? Is it really worth investing in,
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. Well, the science says absolutely. Yes, both for eating and for body image. So the research really shows that even what they did is they took women who are restrictive eaters. So they're always like dieting, watching what they're eating. And what they did is they gave them some kind of treat that was out of their realm of control. But half the group was read a self-compassion phrase, like we all make mistakes, so we're all human, we're all imperfect. It's sort of this idea of common humanity that we all are valuable beings. And the women who heard the self-compassion, it was just a paragraph that they read to them, they didn't go on and binge. The women who, maybe they got a milkshake and didn't hear it, went on and ate even more. But hearing that self-compassion phrase actually stopped the women. It normalized them. So when we realize that, oh my gosh, everybody, occasionally has a treat and don't need to be perfect, the self-compassion really helps you to forgive yourself, to not need to be perfect all the time. So it sort of really takes a weight off your back. But self-compassion basically is learning to treat yourself the way you would a good friend. And so what I do with a lot of my clients is like, listen to the dialogue that how you speak to yourself. And we'll do a little exercise where I'll ask them, imagine that something went wrong in your life. So you had a fight with a loved one, you got into a fender bender, you had a health crisis. Notice the kind of language and the tone of voice you use towards yourself. Now, do the same thing, but notice that that's happened to a friend of yours. What would you do if a friend had a health crisis, a fender bender, or was in a fight with their spouse? You would, of course, give them a hug. Are you okay? And that's a real wake-up call when you do that side by side and you say, oh my God, look at how I talk to myself versus how I talk to a friend. And a lot of people are just sort of shocked. They never realize this sort of internal dialogue. I'm not good enough. I'm too heavy. I'm not in control of my eating. So it opens up this whole conversation of, gosh, how can I talk to myself? What is a self-compassionate tone? And how would I treat myself if I was treating myself like a good friend? What would I do in terms of how I take care of myself physically, how I take care of myself emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and in relationships? So it's kind of a really beautiful way to start this conversation around self-care and self-compassion. And I find with my clients is when we start this, then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this eating doesn't have to be a crutch anymore because I have other ways I can take care of myself. Like I had a client yesterday. She's a newly diagnosed diabetic, woman at midlife. And most of my clients know how to eat right. It's not an issue of education, but she can't, she is in a very high stress job. And so she will, binge. That's how she takes care of herself. And so we made a list of how else might you take care of yourself other than eating. And she was like, wow, I could do all of these things. I could take a nap. I could listen to music. I could color my mandalas. I could call a friend. I could go for a walk. So that's part of the conversation. We think that the only way that we can deal with our stresses and our struggles and cope is with food. And you start to have this new dialogue where there's lots of other ways that you can care for yourself. And being self-compassionate, my research myself was on body image and self-compassion. And I simply send self-compassion podcasts to women. I had a control group and a women who received self-compassion podcasts who had body image issues, and compared to the controls who did not receive the podcasts, body dissatisfaction went down, body appreciation went up, self-worth based on appearance went down, and self-compassion went up. So just from listening to podcasts meditations for about 20 minutes, 3 times a week, they transform their relationship with their body in terms of body image. So self-compassion is super powerful. And the great news about it is that anybody can learn it. So it's a trait, but it's also something that you can learn, and you can work on, and fall in love with yourself.
Mm. It is amazing how different those voices are. The way we talk to ourselves, and then like we would talk to a friend or someone else we care about. What is it about women, do you think, that we're so darn hard on ourselves when it comes to food and nutrition? I just see it so often.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I think part of it is also, we look at our moms and it's our culture. Part of what happens is the media actually wants women to be hard on themselves and feel bad about themselves, so then it can sell us solutions. Like if we felt truly great in our skin and good about ourselves, would we buy all of this stuff to feel better? And it's the same thing as the diet, right? We feel bad about our bodies, and instead of saying, okay, I'm going to take care of my body and love my body, eat right, exercise, sleep, I'm going to, beat my body up and starve my body. So women have a fierce self-critic. And I think part of that is that we really believe that we need our self-critic in order to stay motivated. And the research clearly shows that, the self-critic actually undermines motivation, because what happens is when we criticize ourselves, it's just the same as if someone else criticized us. So we generate cortisol. We feel bad about ourselves. So self-criticism is not necessary to get to your goals. And in fact, it's going to undermine the very motivation that you are seeking. So we have this built-in idea that we need our self-critic in order to move forward in our lives. And the self-critic it comes from early caregivers. So, it's a protection mechanism when we're young. Our parents tell us, do your homework, keep your room neat. If we're overweight, they tell us, you better lose weight. And so we internalize these voices. That's something I work with a lot of my clients, is something called internal family systems, looking at these parts of ourselves, like the self-critic, the self-saboteur, the people pleaser, and starting to look at them, shine light on them, that they're there to help us, but they're not serving us anymore. And so how do we untangle from the self-critic? How do we untangle from the saboteur or the people pleaser, or even looking at, okay, the emotional eating is there to help me cope, but it's not serving me anymore. And in fact, it's making my life worse, because now I am developing health issues and I'm not feeling good about myself and I don't have energy. So really unraveling, okay, you've been using this for years. Let's untangle it and figure out a new way for you to live a healthier life and, get this food monkey off your back.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about health behavior change, and, when someone has a barrier in front of them or a pattern that they're consistently engaging in. So example might be someone walks in a door from a stressful day at work and they go to the freezer to grab the ice cream or some version of that. It's when people have those behaviors so tightly connected that it just feels like it's so automatic, right? They're not even thinking about it. It's like driving to work. How can someone start to even break those associations? Because it seems like those in and of themselves can hold so much sway over someone. So in addition to the self-compassion and maybe kind of putting food in its place, right? Figuring out, really digging deeper, right? What about just those really automatic behaviors? How might you start to think about that or address that with someone?
Well, I think part of it, the work that, we're doing is to help them figure that out for themselves. And how do you break that change? So part of it is, not letting yourself get to that starvation place, so that when you are coming home at 6 o'clock, you've already taken the cognitive part, your frontal, cortex, that executive functioning, and decided, okay, like I know tonight that I made chicken 2 days ago, and I have 2 pieces of chicken for myself and my partner, and I'm going to make some potatoes or some rice and have a salad, and it's all ready to go. So even though I might be really hungry come 6, 7 o'clock, I know what my plan is. So part of it is you have to disengage from that little child. It's the dopamine. So I know you're really into neuroscience. This dopamine, this reward. Like, I really want this reward. I've had a crappy day and I really want that ice cream. So you have to kind of take that part of yourself and say, okay, I know you want the ice cream, but we have a great dinner. And if you still want a little ice cream for dessert afterwards, then we'll have that. So it's almost like you have to take charge of your life. And you have to look at breaking the cycle. So you don't keep ice cream in the house. If you want to have an ice cream, and I'm all for people learning how to incorporate the foods that they love, because that makes them not want to binge on them later. But it's like, okay, well, I'll go out and I'll get a cone, or I'll buy, a single serve. I'll buy like one small treat. So you have to start to really use the frontal cortex, that big human brain, to start to, create new habits, break old habits. So it's a habit, you've got this habit loop. So had a stressful day, you walk in the door, you reach for the ice cream, you sit down and you eat it, and the ice cream is a reward, and you sort of feel better. But then your problems are still there. And on top of it, you feel bad about yourself because you've just overeaten. So instead, I have a lot of my clients do is, okay, you have a snack in the car, maybe you have something like some nuts, like in a measured amount, which help you with that not being starving when you get home, or an apple and a cheese stick, or you have a yogurt at work. So you have a snack. So you're not coming home starving. You've decided, okay, I'm stressed out. So instead of reaching for food, oh my gosh, my sneakers are right there with my workout clothes. I'm going to go take a walk. And then I already know what I'm having for dinner. And if I'm still hungry, well, I can have a small treat for myself. So it's just rewriting the script and creating new habit loops. And it's completely possible. I think that, again, it's a very different approach than this diet. I'm counting calories. I have a solution. I've been good today. What I help people do is create habits for life. Get that food monkey off your back. Really think about, who would I be and what would my life look like if I didn't worry and think about food and have this stressful relationship with it? So yeah, it's about breaking those habit chains and creating new habit chains, which really are all about a stimulus. So the stimulus is, I come home, I see my sneakers. That's my stimulus, my response. My new habit is I go for a walk, and then maybe I reward myself with, I don't know, sitting and reading, or, having a healthy dinner, so that you're reinforcing this new habit.
Yeah. So what I'm really hearing as foundational, kind of pieces to put in place here is, number one, to address biological hunger. That unless you do that, you're not going to get very far, because your body's signals can be pretty darn strong, right? Because like you said, it's your body's goal to stay alive. So to make sure that both you've planned to be hungry, so you know what a choice would be that resonates with you, and you have that food available to you. But then also, planning to maybe fuel yourself before you get to that point of ravenous or super hungry. And then to really build in some safeguards in your environment, to think about reshaping your kitchen or your home, so that perhaps, things that you feel are just, a bit more of a vulnerability for you, whether it be certain foods, trigger foods, so to speak, to put them just a little bit out of reach until maybe you feel stronger, or you've developed some more skills around creating a pause, right, before you do something like you're saying. And then to just think about maybe even replacement. behaviors. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Like, okay, so yeah, so, if it's a stress management thing, what else can I put in my environment? Whether it's, coloring a mandala or taking a walk, that will just make sure that I have those triggers there, those visual triggers. So that I just know I have an alternative to turn to in those moments.
Yeah, what I work with people, everything you say is absolutely correct, is really, let's address the emotional eating and the difficulties. Let's not put you on a diet. Like my client I had yesterday,
Yeah.
she wanted, she's a diabetic. She's thinking, aren't you going to give me a diet? And I said, doesn't make sense to give you a meal plan and talk about that until we've been able to help you get away from all of the emotional eating. And what I love about coaching is that people come up with their own solutions. Like I had one client and she had put on a ton of weight. She travels all over the state. And she would fill up her car in the morning and she would go to the Quickie Mart and buy a bunch of crappy snacks to eat all day. And so what we did is, instead of having the crappy snacks, she filled her car up the night before. So she wasn't tempted. She didn't carry change in her purse, so she wouldn't buy the things. And instead she, had a healthy breakfast and she brought a cooler with her. So it's really not that hard to eat right, to give your body what it needs. And I think that's another big piece is, there's lots of healthy foods that taste really great.
It's true.
But we have this idea that if it's good for us, like I love eating healthy. I mean, I eat healthy all the time. I don't like the way that my body feels when I eat something artificial. And, if I eat a lot of sugar or, I've cut out alcohol, I just don't like the way my body feels. And that's part of the getting in tune with your body and asking your body, what do I need right now? Do I really need food? And a thing I use a lot with my clients is I don't know if you used it, an acronym HALT. So to ask yourself, am I really hungry? Well, if I'm hungry, what's going to really make me feel good? What do I need right now to eat? And the A stands for either anxious or angry. If I'm anxious or angry, how do I address these emotions? The L is lonely. If I'm lonely, how do I address that? Like my client yesterday, she's lonely, and so she'll eat to fill up that space. So we were talking about things she could go out and do, ways to meet people, make more friends. And then the final one, the T is tired. If you're tired, take a nap or go out and get some fresh air and exercise. Because the problem is if you're hungry and you eat, there's a feedback mechanism and you stop eating because you're full. If you eat because you're angry, anxious, lonely, tired, bored, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And
so
that's a revelation for you. You're just going to keep going.
Yeah, sure. Because the emotion is still ongoing.
Correct. And then what happens is after you've eaten, you're still stuck with the difficult emotion or feeling. It's not been addressed. But on top of it, you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just ate that. And I don't feel good about myself.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you that I think coaching is such a powerful way to approach nutrition and the whole idea around changing behaviors and shifting behaviors, because, although there's certainly a lot of skill sets that people can develop around food and eating, from food preparation to selection, right? So, flavor pairing and enjoyment of food and figuring out what works for them and, what time of day and meal size and all of that. I think that ultimately, what I'm trying to do, it sounds like you too, is get people to the point where they feel their best physically. So that involves addressing all the underlying stuff for sure. But to get them to that point, so they then have kind of a new baseline where they have a better sense of, like you were talking about, those little shifts, right? Where maybe you have just a little bit too much sugar, and you're a little more hyper than you'd want to be, or you feel a little more lethargic than you feel at your baseline, your new baseline where you feel really good. And so coaching, I think, just kind of gives the power back to someone to say, hey, listen, like I'm your guide here. I can give you some of the knowledge and the framework and maybe the science behind or what else I see, what else I observe. But you are the only one who's really going to know what that experience of going from not feeling great to feeling good is really like, and where those little tweaks need to happen. Because I don't think you can really totally ever understands the details of someone's experience in the way that they can. So it really does, I think, always need to be a partnership, when you're working with someone, and coaching really creates that. Just that, framework, so to speak, or the space for that to happen. So I'm with you. I just love that way of thinking.
Well, it's nice too, because it takes some of the burden off you. And I had my brother ask me the question, do you ever feel like you steer people in the wrong direction? And I said, no, because I listen it deeply and I let them come up with their solutions. Of course, sometimes, we do put our expert hats on because we're nutritionists and we have a wealth of knowledge around food, but we're omnivores. There's thousands of different ways that you can have a healthy diet. And so it's up to the individual to decide what it is that they want to do and why it is that they want to transform their eating habits and their body and their life.
Love it. So after someone has walked through this process where maybe they've identified a few things that they really want to work on. So, whether it be maybe binge eating, or whether it's just kind of getting some of that energy and time away from the weight itself to move on to other things in their life. If someone is really thinking about building confidence with eating and building a way of eating, a way of thinking about food that will just, in the long term, help them to feel their best and to really allow them to feel like they're making the best choice in the moment. I guess my questions for you are twofold. So what does confidence in eating look like? What form might that take? Knowing it could be different for everybody, but what do you see as really maybe an end goal for someone who's thinking about where they want to go? And then any other pieces to that journey that you feel are really essential?
Sure. That's a great question. So it's interesting to look at confidence and look at the word root. So the word confidence comes from confide. So to be confident really means to trust yourself. And I think that is a huge step for the women we're working with who have emotional eating, binge eating, because they've gotten so used, as you said earlier, in our conversation, to externalize eating. So I trust Weight Watchers, I trust Jenny Craig. And so that's a really scary step to say, oh my gosh, I trust my body. I trust my body to tell me what it is that I want to eat, to tell me when I'm full, to tell me when I'm hungry. So the confidence really comes in learning how to listen to your body. And it's, you have to be willing to try and take a chance. And, you had sort of mentioned this earlier, that it's really scary for people initially. If you've been a restrictive eater and you've dealt with trying to externalize what you're eating by following some kind of plan, to all of a sudden go, oh my God, I'm just going to listen to what I want. Well, what if I want to eat a whole cake? But right. What happens is when I had one client and she really would eat those, like the birthday cakes that they sell at supermarkets with like the white cake with the really thick, sweet, frosting. When she gave herself permission and, I had her bring a piece of the cake in, she was like, you know what? I don't actually really like this.
Wow.
But she was, eating it because it was like, oh, that's my go-to to deal with my comfort and my anxiety and my stress. But when she sat down and ate it mindfully, it was like, I really want this, So the whole confidence piece, it comes by trial and error, but learning how to trust yourself and know that, you have this built-in mechanism. Like, look at babies, right? Babies eat the right amount because they know when they're hungry, they scream and they get a bottle of the breast and then they stop. And they don't, tend to overdo it. If their caregiver is really listening to their cues and, it's a combination of sort of, and this is what I work with clients too, this combination of listening to my body, but also being on some kind of schedule. Because we do have circadian rhythms around food. Like I eat a lot of the same things. I have some variety, but I eat, basically breakfast, lunch, dinner, a snack kind of in between lunch and dinner, maybe a snack before, after I work out. My body's kind of used to a certain way of eating. So it's a combination of trusting your body, really listening and questioning, what are the foods I really like? Like, being like, I love the word you used earlier. I love curious. That's one of my favorite words. I think as coaches, we love that word. Let's get curious. Mm. Let's like try to get curious about, I eat this food and how do I feel? So I have, some yogurt and fresh fruit or a green smoothie and how do I feel? And I have a donut and a cup of coffee. How do I feel? Noticing how your energy is, how you're feeling. You might eat the donut and coffee and sure, you get this great, dopamine squirt with all that sugar and probably some, other endorphins and things from the fat. And then you've got the coffee working on, a quick energy spurt. But then, an hour later, your blood sugars drop because you've excreted all this insulin and you feel bad. Whereas if I have, like a nice green smoothie and maybe, for me, my go-to is always I have a smoothie for breakfast, usually with a piece of toast with some peanut butter. I feel great for hours. Yes. So to really trust that you know how to eat right, just like that baby knows how to eat right. And getting back to that place. And that's what builds the confidence. It takes time. And, you might put on a pound or two and that's okay. But you will turn that corner and then eating will become, something enjoyable and hopefully effortless. And you won't be putting all of this energy into thinking about food and worrying about it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Core go-to meals, man, just invaluable to know, okay, so day's a little crazy, don't really want to sit down and focus on every bite, so, okay, what can I grab that I know really meets my physical needs, that I enjoy, that's not going to be too little, right? Or too much. It's going to keep my energy levels up. I think finding those meals is one of the best gifts we can give ourselves, so we always really know where to turn, because certainly there's those moments, like you said, where maybe we're just eating, right? Something we enjoy just because we enjoy it, where there's not a lot of nutritional benefit, but those foods often do really, when you're eating those foods, it does make a lot of sense, I think, to pay just a little extra attention, right? Like with the cake, right? Like, okay, so when have I had enough? When am I enjoying it? When am I not? Right? Just knowing I'm eating it for the sake of enjoyment. So let's get that out of it, right? It's not just about shoving it down, right? Because of, stress response or whatever it is, but it's really about, finding joy in the moment, right? While you're enjoying something. Not because you deserve it or not just because you enjoy it. And it's okay because it fits, it makes sense in kind of the larger big picture.
Yeah. And also really questioning, like, what's fun food? Like I went to, I live in Vermont and we have, a big state fair and it's like, the fried Oreos and the fried dough and the fried everything, crazy. And I ate before I went because I knew that I wouldn't feel good eating those things. I wasn't going to go on that and go on some spinny rides. It was just, so I know my body and I don't really want to eat those things anymore. But that's me. Some of my clients build those things in because what happens is they feel really deprived. Like I've had clients go I'm going to be gluten-free vegan, and it's like, how long does that last before you're going to the opposite ends of the spectrum? So let's try to, like you said, find what works for you. And I think the confidence piece too is it's so important to carry food. Like I always carry snacks with me because I hate being hungry. I can't function at my best if I am hungry. If I'm hungry, I'm thinking about food all the time. So I always make sure to carry something in my purse, make sure, I'm really taking care of myself.
Ellen, can we talk a little bit more about that mindful eating piece with that example you brought up with the cake, with the exercise in the office? Because I think some people you probably were really kind of taken aback by that. That this woman, right, thought she loved this food, she ate it all the time, and then just kind of realized she didn't. Tell us more about what that looks like and how people can walk maybe through that process on their own or with support. Because I know I've done mindful eating exercises like that in the past where I've really, sat down and savored the food and experienced the flavors. And I've kind of had that same response, like, okie dokie, don't really love this. In fact, it doesn't really have much flavor. There's just an association. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear more about that. Like, just breaking down that term mindful eating in terms of, what does it mean for some of those foods that people might just have as their go-tos?
Well, I think that's just, questioning our beliefs. So we have these
Yeah.
beliefs that these things that we're not allowed to eat are the things that we really, really want. But then when we give ourselves permission to eat them and eat them mindfully, all of a sudden it's like, this isn't really what I wanted to eat. Or what I see happening a lot of times is that people have like a birthday, right? And they've got this great cake and they deny themselves the cake. So what they do is later on, they eat like 3 slices of something else. So when we give ourselves, permission and really trust in ourselves to eat what we really love and experiment with what do I really love, then we come into this really nice, healthy relationship with food. So the pieces with the mindful eating are to really slow down, to really take your time to turn off distractions. So the cell phone is off. It's great to do if you've got kids or you're in a relationship, to sit and eat with someone, or if it's yourself, maybe you want to go out to a nice restaurant. Give yourself at least 20 minutes to a half an hour. That's how long it really takes for the chemicals in your brain to tell you that you're full. So sit and make a beautiful place for yourself. So mindful eating is really about using all your senses. So your sense of sight, your sense of taste, your sense of touch, your ears, your sense of smell, and really savoring your food. Just like, wow. Thinking about like all the hands that went into preparing it, being grateful that you have food, and then just noticing what happens when I take a bite. I mean, particularly the first bite and the last bite are the best bites. So a lot of times I'll have clients like, you love chocolate? Go out and get yourself the most fabulous truffle on the planet and really eat it mindfully and realize that it's that first bite, it's that last bite. But it all starts with taking the time, being curious, questioning your beliefs, and really realizing that it doesn't have to be this stressful thing. I think that's a big piece of it, is deciding like, I'm really want to let this go because it's taking so much of my energy and I want to have a healthy, joyful relationship with food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So gosh, just moving, like putting food in its place, right? And thinking, okay, so how can I make this work for me instead of kind of controlling me, right? Controlling my day-to-day thought and energy and brain power. So I really don't have, time or resources for the other things I want to accomplish. And love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, and being easy with yourself. So to bring it back to that self-compassion piece, it means being kind rather than critical. There's 3 components of self-compassion. So there's kindness rather than self-criticism. There's common humanity. So it's about progress, not perfection. So you're making progress. Great. Well, maybe I had 3 slices of pepperoni pizza last night, but you know what? I had a salad for lunch and I'm going to have, a stir fry for dinner. And then the last piece is the mindfulness piece, which is understanding when you're suffering and giving yourself what you really need. And a lot of times it's not food. So bringing self-compassion into it and being curious about, the foods you're really going to like. Like I'll, have a lot of clients just, they'll realize like with the cake issue, like, I would love to have like shrimp cocktail instead of the greasy fried appetizer that I always have. I'd be happy, sharing an entree. I don't like that stuffed feeling. So really questioning the way that you've been operating and being curious about what would be a different way to approach your relationship with food.
Yeah. Resetting. Yeah. So, Ellen, for women who are finding this appealing, this way of thinking about food, or think that they might want to move in a direction that's more self-compassionate, where there's just, less of the guilt and less of the frustration around food and eating. Of course, we're here, right? We're around. A good coach, dietitian can be a wonderful guide on the journey. But what else would you suggest as far as resources go? What else could people take advantage of to help them for next steps?
Well, if people are interested in self-compassion, there's a lot of really good places to go for that. I would probably start with selfcompassion.org, which is Kristen Neff's website. She was a mentor of mine on my dissertation. She's kind of the pioneer in this whole field. She's got a whole lot of wonderful guided meditations and other exercises. She also has a great book called Self-Compassion. There's also the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. So there's a lot of great resources out there in self-compassion. There's also a ton of great resources out there on mindfulness. I really like Savor by Thich Nhat Hanh. He's also co-written with a dietitian. I think, that whole mindfulness piece is really important with learning how to slow down, how to pause. So I would recommend self-compassion. I would recommend mindfulness. I would certainly, if you want to connect with me, you can email me at drellenalbertson.com. I'm also on Facebook at drellenalbertson. I have a group for women at midlife that addresses all kinds of issues, not just eating, called Midlife Reboot Mastermind. So I think it's really figuring out, where do you want to take this? What are the resources that are going to work for you? And also really thinking about what's your why? Why do you want to change your life? And just going deeper and deeper. Okay, so I want to have a more peaceful relationship with food. Well, why do you want to have a more peaceful relationship with food? Well, I'm tired of thinking about food all the time. And why are you tired of thinking about food all the time? Because there's other places I want to put my energy. So where would you put your energy? Just sort of doing that kind of motivational interviewing piece of really asking, what's your why? Why do you want to change your relationship with food? And then also facing your fears. So how is, keeping this weight on, this emotional eating piece in place? How is that keeping you stuck? And what would happen if that cage were opened and you lost weight and you weren't emotionally eating? Who would you be? And, how would you feel? And that's kind of scary for people to think about being a new way and knowing that there are people out there. I would say, see a registered dietitian, particularly somebody who has training either as a coach or in the areas of mindful eating or intuitive eating, who can really help you deal with lots of different aspects, or also, maybe seeing a therapist who can help you with some of the emotional problems that you're experiencing that lead you to want to eat as a way of coping with difficult emotions.
Fantastic. A huge breadth of resources, and I'll link to some of them with this recording so that it's a little easier for people to access. So people can reach out to you, can tap into those things, but it sounds like there are so many possible ways forward for women.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing to realize too, is that common humanity, like you're not alone. Like sometimes women think I'm the only person with this issue, and it's simply not true. And it's not your fault. Part of it is that, we've been, this diet mentality has really, chained us where, you diet and then you binge and you go back and forth. So it's kind of like being in this, mentality. Our culture is very much pushing that mentality. So it's really not your fault. And we also live in a culture where there's just a crazy abundance of food. I think there's something crazy like, 15,000 calories available for every man, woman, and child every day. So, we're faced with all of these food challenges. And so there really is help for you. There are thousands of dietitians out there and therapists and people who really want to help you transform your relationship with food so you can be happier and healthier.
It's possible. I love it. Ellen, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your perspective and the transformation that you see, with women in your own practice and really just the hope and resources that are out there for people who, are just seeking a different way for themselves. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. It's so important that you are airing these issues and giving people a deeper understanding of sort of how nutrition and the brain are all connected.
Very good. We'll stay in touch and maybe we'll have you back sometime for more.
I'd love to come back.
Very good. Thanks again, Ellen. Take care.
Sarah here, owner of Mindfully Nourished Solutions. It's my goal with this podcast to explore strategies for empowered and well-informed food and eating decisions. If this information has been supportive to you, please head over to iTunes to rate this episode and to leave a review about what was most helpful. To learn more about how food is impacting the way you feel on a day-to-day basis, head over to my website at mindfullynourishedSolutions.com for a copy of my free food mood journal. See you next time.